खबरां दा लेखा जोखा विच आप सब दा स्वागत है।
Khabran Da Lekha Jokha, November 25th, 2024 has been sponsored by Hanif Litigation. Any criminal or regulatory law matters, contact lawyer Shahid Hanif at 604-626-3144. Hanif Litigation. Vancouver gas prices jumped 10 cents in a week. Average gas prices in Vancouver have risen almost 10 cents per litre in the past week. According to Gas Buddy's daily survey of 426 gas outlets around the city, Vancouver's pumps are averaging $77.24 per litre. The price marks an average rise of 9.7 cents per litre compared to a national average rise of 1.8 cents per litre in the last week. Gas Buddy's head of petroleum analysis Patrick Dehan says prices have likely plateaued, though they won't be getting any lower. He says the gas prices typically bottom out in November and December, a point the region may have already passed, and that's really due to lower gasoline demand as temperatures cool off coast to coast. Canadians and Americans alike. North America sees less demand for things like gasoline, Dehan explained. He says recent price hikes are in part due to the war in Ukraine. Russia launching an ICBM into Ukraine, Russia being a major oil producer, that does change the risk calculus, and as a result of those escalations, oil prices now have moved back north of $70 a barrel. Dehan says the value of Canadian dollar also makes a difference. What Canadian consumers pay when that currency weakens, it certainly does make things more expensive. As for prices in the coming days, Dehan says there could be some additional volatility based on conflict in Ukraine and the Middle East and the changing dynamics of the U.S. presidential administration, but Gas Buddy predicts the prices will mostly remain stable. While demand for gasoline continues to weaken as temperature continues to fall, we could eventually see relief return, but for now I believe prices should hold close to where they currently stand, said Dehan. Relief in prices, he says, will likely come in the new year. There could be another window of opportunity for lower gas prices in January, February, simply because demand for gasoline tends to be among the lowest over the course of the year when the temperatures are at their lowest.
पिछले एक हफ्ते के दौरान वैंकूवर के एरिया दे विच गैस ਦੀਆਂ कीमतां ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ तकरीबन 10 सेंट प्रति लीटर ਦਾ ਵਾਧਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਵੀ ਉਠਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕਿਉਂ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਕੁਝ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਗੈਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਨਿਰੰਤਰ ਘੱਟ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਵੱਲ ਸਨ, ਪਰ ਇੱਕ ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਤਨਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਵਾਧੇ ਦਾ ਕਾਰਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਯੂਕਰੇਨ ਤੇ ਰਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੇ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜੰਗ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਦੂਸਰੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਸਰਦੀ ਦੀ ਰੁੱਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਸਰਦੀਆਂ ਪੈਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਗੈਸ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਘਟ ਜਾਣ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਵੀ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਮੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਜਿਸ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ ਹਨ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਰਹਿਣਗੀਆਂ, ਪਰ ਅਗਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਨਵਰੀ ਫਰਵਰੀ ਦੇ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸਰਦ ਰੁੱਤ ਦੇ ਭਾਰੂ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਮੰਗ ਦੇ ਘਟਣ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਕੀਮਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਮੀ ਆ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ।
BC housing markets report strong rebound in October. BC home sales made a strong return in the month of October, according to a recent report. The British Columbia Real Estate Association says it recorded 7,119 residential unit sale in October, marking a 33.5% increase year over year. While it took longer than expected, a recovery in home sales to more normal levels has seemingly arrived, said BCREA Chief Economist Brandon Amundsen. Across BC, we saw significant month-over-month increases in activity as buyers returned to the market after long high interest rate-driven hitches. The association says prices also rose 0.3% province-wide in October, with an average price of $970,845 in Metro Vancouver. The average was $1.25 million. The total sales volume for the month was reportedly $6.9 billion. Overall sales in BC were 8% lower than 10-year average for October. Total sales for the year are still 0.2% behind 2023.
Real estate ਦੀ ਮਾਰਕੀਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਈ ਹੋਈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਿਲਜੁਲ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਖੁਲਾਸਾ ਕੀਤਾ BC ਦੀ ਰੀਅਲ ਅਸਟੇਟ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹਾ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨਿਸਬਤ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਸੇਲਸ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਧਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਦਰਜ 7,119 ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ 9,70,000 ਐਵਰੇਜ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਘਰ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਆਸ-ਪਾਸ ਦੇ ਇਲਾਕਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ $1.25 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਦੀ ਐਵਰੇਜ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਸ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਦਰਜ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਮੈਟਰੋ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਵਿਖੇ। ਔਰ ਆਗਾਮੀ ਸਮਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਮਾਰਕੀਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਿਲਜੁਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਆਸਾਰ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਪਰ 2023 ਦੇ ਮੁਕਾਬਲੇ ਅਗਰ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਅਜੇ ਵੀ ਸੇਲਸ ਦੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਮੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ 0.3% ਦਰਜ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ।
Abbotsford police seeking suspect after woman escapes from vehicle. Abbotsford police are investigating after woman escaped a driver who allegedly offered her a ride and then made sexual advances early Sunday morning. The Abbotsford Police Department says a woman in her 30s was waiting on Peerdonville Road near South Fraser Way before 3 a.m. when a man in a truck offered to drive her home. During the drive, the man began making unwanted advances towards her. At one point, he pulled his truck over in the area of the Huntingdon Road and Columbia Street intersection, which provided the female an opportunity to jump out of the truck and flee the area on foot seeking help, Abbotsford police said. Officers found the woman screaming for help after she stopped in a nearby home to call police. Although extremely shaken up, the female was not physically injured. Police say the suspect is a man in his late 50s to early 60s with short salt and pepper hair. He was reportedly wearing a blue and black plaid jacket and driving a small gray or silver truck. Abbotsford Police Department says its major crime unit has taken over the investigation and is searching for witnesses and dashcam footage. Those who may have been traveling in the area of the Huntingdon Road and Columbia Street intersection between 2:30 a.m. and 3:15 a.m. were asked to call the Abbotsford Police Department at 604-859-5225.
Abbotsford Police Department ने आम जनता तो मंग की है और केस है कि एक औरत जी कि 30 सालों के करीब सी सवेरे 3 बजे उसनों एक राइड है जी एबसफोर्ड विखे एक ट्रक दे विच ट्रक चालक ने उसनों घर पहुंचाने की मदद लिए राइड दी, पर राह दे विच उसी छेड़छाड़ के कारण औरत ने जो लाइट के उत्ते रुकया तो उसके गड्डी दे विचों बाहर निकल गई तो जाके आस पास के लोगों तो उसने मदद की मंग की है। हुण पुलिस का कहना है कि 2:30 बजे तो लैके तकरीबन 3:15 बजे के करीब किसी पास भी डैश कैम या किसी प्रकार की जानकारी है तो वो एबसफोर्ड पुलिस के नाल जरूर संपर्क पैदा करन।
Canada Post says it's down 10 million parcels as strike enters new week. As the Canada Post strike enters its second week, the Crown Corporation says it's down 10 million parcels with Black Friday and the holidays rapidly approaching. Talks with a special mediator continued over the weekend between the union representing more than 55,000 postal workers and their employer with the help of special mediator. In a statement, Canada Post says progress has been limited. Canada Post now enters the busy Black Friday online shopping week effectively shut down as CUPW's national strike is now on day 11, said Canada Post spokesperson Linda Liu. We are down nearly 10 million parcels since the strike began, which will only increase as the strike continues and people look elsewhere to have their items delivered. The impacts continue to be felt across the country, hitting small businesses, charities, and remote communities the most. Canada Post has offered wage increases totaling 11.5% over 4 years and additional paid leave, but the union has called for a cumulative wage hike of 24% over 4 years. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers, CUPW, also wants full-time employees to deliver package shipments on weekends, while Canada Post has offered to hire more part-time staff. CUPW issued a statement on Monday claiming Canada Post has been calling members to lay down off in several regions across the country, referring to it as a scare tactic. While some are saying it is temporary, we've heard stories that it may be more permanent. The statement read in part, "It is clear that Canada Post cannot lay off current employees and bring someone different back to do the work after a strike lockout. If we are made aware of such an action by Canada Post, please advise the union as soon as possible."
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪੋਸਟ ਦੀ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸਟ੍ਰਾਈਕ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੱਜ 11ਵੇਂ ਦਿਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚਲੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਖੁਲਾਸਾ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪੋਸਟ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 10 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਰਸਲ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇ ਸਕਣਗੇ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ 10 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਪਾਰਸਲ ਦੇ ਹੋਰ ਬਿਜ਼ਨੈਸਸ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਇਸ ਬਲੈਕ ਫਰਾਈਡੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪੋਸਟ ਨੂੰ ਫਾਈਨੈਂਸ਼ਲੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਘਾਟਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬੇਅੰਤ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਨਲਾਈਨ ਸ਼ਾਪਿੰਗ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੱਡੀ ਮਾਤਰਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪੋਸਟ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਵਪਾਰਕ ਅੰਸ਼ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਪੋਸਟ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਸਿਰਫ 11.3% ਦਾ ਵਾਧਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ 4 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੇਜਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿ ਯੂਨੀਅਨ 24% ਵਾਧੇ ਦੀ ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਮੰਗ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਹਜੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਧੀਮੀ ਗਤੀ ਨਾਲ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ
Court hearing legal arguments in sex assault case of 5 hockey players. A London, Ontario judge is hearing legal arguments today in the sexual assault case of 5 members of Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team. Dillo Dude, Carter Hart, Michael McLeod, Carl Forte and Alex Fomenton were charged with sexual assault earlier this year in an incident that allegedly took place in the city in June of 2018. McLeod also faces an additional charge of sexual assault for being a party to the offense. Duke, McLeod and Fomenton are attending in person, all 3 dressed in dark suits. Lawyers for the players have said their clients plan to defend themselves against the allegation and all 5 are expected to plead not guilty. A jury trial is scheduled to begin on April 22nd of next year. Several weeks have been set aside for legal arguments before then, but the issues discussed in those hearings cannot be reported at this time due to a publication ban meant to protect the accused rights to a fair trial.
ਜੂਨੀਅਰ ਹਾਕੀ ਦੇ 5 ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਲੇਅਰ ਨੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀ ਟੀਮ ਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੋਏ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੋਸ਼ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਲਕ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਾਰਵਾਈ ਜਾਰੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਗਲੇ ਵਰੇ ਦੇ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਅਪ੍ਰੈਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਟ੍ਰਾਇਲ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫੁੱਲ ਫਲੈਸ਼ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਤਰੀਕਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਰਾਖਵੀਆਂ ਰੱਖੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਨਤਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਪਰ ਇਹ 5 ਖਿਡਾਰੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਦੋਸ਼ ਨੇ 2018 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਤਾਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਲਕ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਖਿਡਾਰੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੋਸ਼ ਨੇ ਦੂਸਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਮੁਕਾਬਲੇ ਵਡੇਰੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਪੰਜੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖਿਡਾਰੀ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਕੀਲ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਨਾਟ ਗਿਲਟੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਬਿਆਨ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਦਰਜ ਕਰਨਗੇ
BC Health Minister vows overdose revamp after addictions portfolio is scraped. British Columbia's new health minister says she's aiming for more treatment beds and fewer deaths in a revamped approach to the province's drug overdose crisis. It comes after David Evy's new elected government eliminated the stand-alone Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, which advocates say had no teeth. The former ministry was created in 2017 to provide coordinated responses to the toxic drug crisis which has killed more than 15,000 people in the past 8 years, but it has now been absorbed into the health ministry. Certainly, I really do think the time is right to fold the ministry back into the Ministry of Health, said Josie Osborne, who was appointed health minister last week, replacing former minister Adrian Dix. I think we are in a much better position to expedite action and decision making, Osborne said in an interview. Now is the time to bring that together. The Premier has been very clear he expects an all-government approach to this. The BC Coroner Service says 1,749 people have died of toxic drug overdose so far this year. Last year, the service reported 2,551 overdose deaths, the most ever recorded in a single year in the province. We are going going to do everything possible that we can to reduce the number of deaths and the impacts on people and families, Osborne said. This is one of the toughest challenges our government, our society that BC faces, and one of our government's top priorities. The key here is helping people and doing everything we can from all different approaches to reduce the number of deaths and to help people recover and be well. BC drug policy advocates who are calling on the government to support more safe supply and drug decriminalization policy initiatives say they will watch for signs that the changes and Osborne's appointment result in shifts in direction and approaches. It's good because the Ministry of Health and Addictions wasn't really set up to succeed, said DJ Larkin, Executive Director of the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition and an adjunct professor at the Health Science at Simon Fraser University. It didn't have the budget or the authority to do what we needed to happen, and it set expectations they couldn't meet, Larkin said. It didn't have the teeth that sets up people for disappointment because they gather the data. They get the experts' input, they get the ideas, but they didn't have the teeth to make it happen. Leslie McBain, co-founder of Mom Stop the Harm, a harm reduction advocacy group, said she is looking forward to the ministry change because we have not got very far in terms of the toxic drug crisis. She said she believed the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions was a little bit hoped because it fell under the Health Ministry but had little power. I'm optimistic now, of course, said McBain. I think change is better than being stuck in a place where there hasn't been great movement. These 7 or 8 years we've been waiting for things to improve and they have not. So with a change, there's hope. But Larkin and McBain, whose son Jordan died of an overdose more than a decade ago, say they will continue to push Osborne and the NDP government to support efforts to back decriminalization and safe supply efforts. The government flatly rejected calls from the province chief coroner Lisa Lapointe earlier this year to provide non-prescription access to controlled drugs. It also rolled back a decriminalization pilot project after political and public outcry over open drug use. Decriminalization has been basically gutted by the Premier, McBain said. It needs to be strengthened rather than gutted for people to be able to use drugs safely. Larkin said advocates intend to push Osborne and the government to continue to initiate policy reform towards more decriminalization of drugs. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people every year who use unregulated drugs. That is the source for this problem. If we want to save healthcare dollars, policing dollars, and reinvest in communities, we need to deal with the unregulated drug supply, and that means changing the law, Larkin said. Osborne acknowledged the issues of decriminalization, safe supply, and the involuntary care, but said as a new minister she is looking to address the overdose crisis by reaching out to agencies, communities, and people. Right now, what's ahead of me is learning about and listening to people, communities, and all the agencies and organizations to understand the real on-the-ground impacts of different approaches to this, she said.
BC सूबा सरकार ने अपनी मैंटल ते एडिक्शन वाली जिहड़ी मिनिस्ट्री है उसनों हुण हेल्थ मिनिस्टर दी छत्र छाया दे हेठां लाया आंदा और इस दे उपर नवे मंत्राला मंत्री ने अपने जिहड़े ख्याल ने उन्हां नूं ज़ाहिर कीता है कि उन्हां दी कोशिश होएगी कि हुण तक मिलियां होईयां जिहड़ियां जानकारियां ने उन्हां दे आधार दे उत्ते कोई सुखावे ते पद्धरे जिहड़े कदम ने वो चुके जाण। याद रहे 2017 दे विच बड़ी हुई मिनिस्ट्री ने कोई खास रोल अदा नहीं कर सकी और उस दे नाल नाल ये भी गल स्पष्ट की है कि मिनिस्ट्री पास मिनिस्ट्री बनी और सारे कारगुजारी भी की गई पर किसी भी प्रकार के पुख्ता जिहड़े फैसले लैण दे लई धनराशि जां लैण दे जिहड़े हक ने उन्हां पास नहीं सन। इस करके जिहड़ी मिनिस्ट्री है जो उसका काम सी वो पूर्ण तौर पर कर नहीं सकी। हुण हेल्थ मिनिस्ट्री दे हेठां शायद मैंटल हेल्थ ते एडिक्शन दे संबंध दे विच कुछ पुख्ता जिहड़े कदम ने चुके जा सकन जिस दा कि भरोसा मौजूदा नवे बने हुए सेहत मंत्री ने आम पब्लिक नूं जिहड़ा ओह दवाया है। याद रहे पिछले हुण तक ओवरडोज के कारण तकरीबन 1749 लोगों ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਮੌਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੀਆਂ ਨੇ ओवरडोज ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ और पिछले साल ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ 2500 ਤੋਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਸੀ और ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਚੰਗੇਰੀ ਤੇ ਤਿੱਖੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਨਿਗਾਹ ਰੱਖਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪੁਖਤਾ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਲਏ ਜਾ ਸਕਣ।
Canadian veterans call for better health benefits to deal with chronic pain and other issues. A growing number of Canadian veterans are calling on the government to increase healthcare benefits to help them deal with injuries they sustained while in service. Justin Stewart, who served in the Navy, started an online petition after they hit several roadblocks in getting certain claims approved to deal with a back injury that occurred during his time in service. This petition is specifically for getting health and fitness related expenses covered or reimbursed for veterans. Stewart, who's had claims for gym expenses, acupuncture and chiropractic therapy denied, says he's not alone. So far, nearly 200 veterans from across Canada have signed the petition. I just went through a pain program with 2 Afghanistan veterans who are going through the same thing, he said. We're not asking for a lot. We're looking at things such as weight loss medications as they relate to pain management or gym memberships as they relate to weight loss and pain management. All measures, Stewart says, were recommended by doctors at a pain clinic funded by Veterans Affairs. They are sending us to a doctor who's within Veterans Affairs actual funding network, and then the recommendations that are being made at this program are still being denied. Rosemary Cytherea, also a veteran, signed the petition after having similar challenges. I phoned Blue Cross, which is our military medical insurance provider, and I had difficulty getting chiropractic covered. It wasn't part of the coverage we received. Veterans say they have no issues getting covered for medications, but when it comes to taking a more holistic approach to therapy, claims are denied. Cytherea, who is currently studying acupuncture, says that needs to change. I can tell you that complementary therapies are bridging the gap between mainstream medical and like alternative therapies, she said. I prefer to not be on medication, Stewart added. If we can find ways to lessen our pain without prescription medications or even in conjunction with prescription medications, then I think we should be able to pursue that as an avenue of treatment in general. Speakers Corner reached out to Veterans Affairs Canada, and spokesperson told us they provide coverage for a wide variety of benefits and services for veterans with chronic pain. Each situation is unique and applications are assessed on a case-by-case basis, the spokesperson said. The extent of coverage is dependent on a number of factors, including what conditions the veteran has, how the veteran qualifies, what their health needs are, and other individual circumstances. As for why certain claims like gym memberships are being denied, the spokesperson did not answer, but said coverage is reviewed and updated on a regular basis based on the evolving needs of the veteran. Stewart and others hope this petition sends a clear message that change is needed now. They are sending us to what is supposed to be the best pain program in Canada according to Veterans Affairs, and then they are going to ignore the recommendations made by them. I find that very interesting.
Veterans ने जी तकरीबन एक petition है जी साइन की है, जिससे विच तकरीबन 200 ने भाग लिया है, और इस petition ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਹੋਈ ਸੱਟ ਫੇਟ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਹੈ, ਪੇਨ ਐਂਡ ਸਫਰਿੰਗਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਹੀ ਨਿਰਧਾਰਿਤ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੋਏ ਅਦਾਰੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਰეკਮੈਂਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਵਰੇਜ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲ ਰਹੀ। ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮੰਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ, ਬਲਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਾਂ ਏਜੰਸੀਜ਼ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪੇਨ ਨੂੰ ਠੀਕ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਜਿਮ ਵਰਗੀਆਂ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਾਇਰੋਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਰਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਰეკਮੈਂਡ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਤਾਂ ਦੇਖਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਬਲੂ ਕ੍ਰਾਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਵਰੇਜ ਕਰਦੀ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਹ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਜਵਾਬ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਅਧਿਕਾਰਤ ਖੇਤਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਵੈਟਰਨਸ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਿਹਤਯਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹਨ।
इसी के साथ हमें दीजिएगा इजाजत। खबरां दा लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम से until next time, goodbye and be safe.